It is an honor to have such a distinguished gathering of experts, professionals, and enthusiasts from various fields. I welcome you all. The past 2 days have been incredibly successful, filled with insightful presentations, engaging discussions, and fruitful networking opportunities. We've explored groundbreaking ideas, innovative research, and practical solutions that have enriched our understanding of architecture, design, and planning. As we commence our third day, let's carry forward the enthusiasm and collaborative spirit that have marked this conference successfully. Today's sessions promise to be just as enriching and inspiring, with a diverse lineup of speakers and topics that will undoubtedly spark new ideas and conversations. Thank you all for your participation and dedication, and let's make this final day of ICOMOS 2024 a memorable and impactful one. I would now like to invite convener Dr. Dipashri Chaudhary. Dr. Dipashri Chaudhary is an architect and urban designer with over 22 years of experience in architectural practice and academics. She is at present a professor at School of Architecture and Planning, I.K.G Institute of Technology, Greater Noida, India. With many original research publications to credit, her research interests span a wide gamut of architectural and urban design disciplines, sustainable habitat design, urban dynamics, disaster risk reduction, building and environmental conservation, and architectural acoustics being a few among them. She has been associated with various national and international seminars, conferences, and workshops time to time. She has co-authored 2 books, written many book chapters, and has won many awards, which include winner of professional category of architectural journalism online, competition series 3, organized by World Architectural Community in 2018. She is the best teacher. She was awarded the best teacher by A3 Foundation, Chandigarh in 2022. Apart from academics, Madam has won many awards for her acting and writing skills, notable among them being the winner of World Hack under college faculty category in the e-rickshaw competition 2021. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I first begin by thanking Dr. Harveen Bhandari for accepting our invitation to deliver this talk. Thank you, ma'am. So, Dr. Harveen Bhandari obtained a doctorate in planning and architecture from I.K.G. Punjab Technical University, Kapurthala, Punjab, and holds a master's and a bachelor's in architecture. Her areas of interest include cultural heritage, living religious heritage, vernacular architecture, and architectural education. She is currently leading the Ph.D. program, Architecture, Urban Design and Development at Chitkara University, and serving as Professor and Dean, Research and Scholastic Development. With an experience of more than 21 years, she has several papers published in Scopus-indexed journals and conference proceedings, and presented and published in international and national conference proceedings also. Ma'am has been a technical committee member for international conferences conducted by IEEE section and Ozyegin University, Istanbul. Madam has chaired sessions for international conferences organized by Seoul National University, Korea, Osmania University, Hyderabad, Rishihood University, Sonepat, and ICOMOS India. Ma'am has been a jury member for architecture thesis vivas conducted by various schools of architecture. She has delivered expert talks on research writing in National Seminar and FDPs organized by CoA-TRC Bhopal, ICOMOS Webinars, and Planning of Chandigarh City as an INTACH resource person of CCA Chandigarh. She has conducted various FDPs for faculties and scholars in architecture also. She is currently the editorial head for the quarterly newsletter of the school. She is also a lifetime member of INTACH and an individual category member of ICOMOS India and FSAI India. Ma'am has been bestowed with many awards, which include Architecture Journalism Merit Award in 2015, Best Teachers Award in 2017 by A3 Foundation Chandigarh, Award of Excellence in Architectural Education 2022 by the Times Group India. Ma'am has also, to her credit, an Excellence Award for Research Publication in 2023 and 2024 by Chitkara University. So with this, I welcome ma'am into our conference to deliver a talk on bibliometric research, and I'm sure that the participants here will gain a lot from madam's talk. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deepashri. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are clearly audible.
Thank you for making me a part of your prestigious international conference, and I hope the sessions must have gone very well in the past 2 days, and today also the conference will culminate very well. So I have 30 minutes, so I'll start my sharing of the screen. And I would also like to thank the management of APJ Institute for organizing such conferences because they are much needed in the architecture fraternity. And for all the participants here today, 30 minutes is very less to justify a technical topic, but I will try my best to do justice to it. But I definitely want to give you some keywords today so that you carry them back home and you remember whenever you think and whenever you talk about bibliometric analysis. So I'm going to share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible. It's clear.
Can you see it full screen or?
No, not full screen till now.
Ma'am, when you share your screen, just share it there. Yeah, we can see it, the full screen.
You can now see it full screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Just give me a second to settle these bars on the screen. So a very good morning to all in one present here, right from the hot temperatures of Rajasthan. The session today on bibliometric analysis, a systematic approach to literature review. Bibliometric analysis doesn't stand independent in the research and in the literature review section or while writing a research paper. So I'll give a quick background to it and what it is for all those who are not much aware of it. What is literature review? That we are all familiar with. It is a synthesis of studies. It's a thorough, a well-written document where you synthesize the current state of knowledge. But the most important thing that you need to remember is it's a process. It's a tool that is used to manage the diversity of knowledge for a specific domain, any domain of inquiry, or any area of research that you choose to work on. So if I talk in brief, the aim of any literature review while you're writing a research proposal or a research paper is to enable the researcher to map and at the same time assess and evaluate the entire existing intellectual property that is available on that specific topic. It is basically used to specify a research question. Every research paper, every research proposal has a unique research question which the researcher tends to answer through his studies. So if I talk about the different steps of a research, you must all be familiar with problem identification, selection of the technique, the research methodology, framing the problem, defining your statement of objectives. So in short, everything beginning from the problem identification to defining that problem and moving to the research design where you select what research methods or tools you're going to use is a part of literature review. A very interesting thesis that I recently read, which is dissertation. It says for a literature review, your task is to build an argument. You present something, you evaluate, assess, present a hypothesis, but it is not to build a library. By library, it means it is not mere a collection of data. It is also an analysis of data. Now, for that analysis, we have different methods, which I'm going to talk about today. So there are various reasons, various significance of doing a literature review, seeking support, grounded theory, providing a base, gaining insights, seeking new lines of inquiry. and many other reasons, many definitions by many scholars. Giving you an example side by side to help you understand, this is one of my published papers. When you present an abstract or when you present the gist of your research paper, which comprises your literature review section as well, what is important? What you need to mention is that how does your study distinguish from the other previously published studies? You need to discover certain important variables, like this paper on bamboo in the building construction talked about UTM and other tests, the tensile strength, ultimately talking about gaining a new perspective. So I am telling you all this. Why is it important? Because when you want to publish your research paper, which has a detailed literature review section, your findings, your design methodology and approach, so what is most important in your paper is the originality or the novelty of the research. And if you look at good journals like the Emerald that I'm showing you, this is again one of my published papers. There is a separate section in the structured abstract where you have to clearly write the originality. And as you move forward, explaining the introduction in your paper, there is also a research question and research gap identification. Now, these two words, the originality or novelty of your research and research gap identification, are a consequence of the literature review that you do. You can derive them only from the previously published literature after reading them thoroughly, after evaluating them and understanding. Now, there are two types of literature review. One is the traditional method of literature review, which is also called the narrative literature review, which we all are familiar with. This is the oldest one. You pick up literature, you read research papers, you manually collect them, then you focus, you shape your research questions. But what is important in this kind of literature review is that you need to have a sufficiently focused research question. This type of traditional method, it uses research questions. It can have a theoretical framework. These are some of the key elements. It can have a sequencing research method, some kind of site participation selection, plotting the research, validity, moving on. Again, showing you a quick example from one of the papers that I published on e-learning adoption by undergraduate architecture students. This is an example of traditional literature review, where we framed our research questions. We manually did record, tabulate all the theories previously done by reading 150 plus papers, framed a research model, and from that research model, you can also, another way of a narrative literature review is pick up the already existing research constructs from different papers. Again, this has to be done manually. And then you frame your research instrument, which you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the research instrument and the different scale items. Now, this is the traditional method of doing a literature review. There is no harm in doing this because it will depend on the type of research you are doing. But while doing manually a literature review, you tend to overcome mistakes. You tend to miss some of the papers which are very important, or you may miss some of the sources, search engines, and lead on to missing some important papers. So nowadays, what is mostly followed, and especially for PhD scholars, we urge them to go in for a systematic literature review. This is a more rigorous approach to reviewing the literature. It will not lead you missing out on important papers, important documents. It will help you segregate each source very clearly, and it is very comprehensive, and the time management is very easy in this kind of literature review. There are again two different methods in systematic literature review also, which is meta-analysis and meta-synthesis. So one of them talks about several studies, analyzes them using standardized statistical procedures, patterns, relationships, what has been already done. But meta-synthesis is based on non-statistical techniques. This only integrates, evaluates multiple qualitative research studies. So when I talk about systematic literature review, there are some key principles which are outlined by Pitway. He says it is very transparent, it is very clear. Whatever papers you collect, you can integrate them, you can present them. There is exact focus because you use the right kinds of keyword, and equality and accessibility. Coverage is very important. So when we talk about systematic literature review, again giving you an example from a very good journal, Science Direct, a paper that was published in architecture, a systematic review. In this, again, there are research questions, but now these research questions are made manually, but the basis of analysis of the paper is some kind of statistical tools. And what is this systematic literature review? There is a methodology that is followed for reviewing the existing literature. So telling you very briefly, this kind of system includes multiple databases at the same time because you use softwares. Number one, if you search manually, we all generally use Google Scholar. Then some of us have access to Scopus through our universities. Most of us then may even use Web of Science. But what about the independent search engines like Science Direct, Wiley, Ebisco? We tend to miss them. We tend to, some of the papers which are present in Taylor and Francis or Springer, they may not be available on Google Scholar. So systematic literature review gives you an ease of analyzing multiple databases at the same time. It will help you search, critique, report the right type of information within the known. Systematic literature review is always time dependent. For example, the research paper I am showing you, it says that following search journals were referred for a time period of 7 years, beginning from 2015 to 22, which means all the papers published during these 8 years were thoroughly assessed and evaluated. So SLR is always based on time period. It will talk about the database from where the literature has been searched. So there are various steps to it. Identification is one of it, screening, exclusion and inclusion criteria, which I will tell you gradually. Systematic literature review, when you submit a paper to any journal for publication in SLR, you have to give this kind of methodology chart that I'm showing you from one of my papers. It begins with identification, which means the number of research papers that you've identified on that particular topic. And just look at this example. This is a paper on heritage. We could identify 12,590 papers, which was manually not possible. Then screening, which means the chosen filter of time period was 15 years, 2005 to 2020. Again, it depends on the research and the author, how does he categorize that. So there are screened patents. Now in this, you have a provision of inclusion and exclusion. You can exclude all those papers which have only abstracts. You just have to set the system, set your tab. You can exclude all non-full text articles. You can exclude conference papers if you don't want. You can exclude book chapters. Whatever type of data you want, you can add a tab and then you can accordingly do it. So beginning from 12,590, we zero down to 35 papers for complete qualitative synthesis of these studies, and then assessing what is actually done aligned in that research area. Under systematic literature review, we are using different kinds of tools, software for analyzing data. So moving on to the focus of today's session, that was just to give you a basis. Bibliometric analysis is a scientific computer-assisted review methodology that can identify core research. It can talk about core authors, their relationship, covering all the publications related to a given topic or field. Again, an example, a bibliometric analysis of digital technologies used in construction, health, and safety. Bibliometric analysis papers generally have the word bibliometric analysis in their title, and you can also try and omit, but it will be a part of your abstract. Now, what is a bibliometric analysis? As I already talked about SLR, this comes under systematic literature review. This is very different from the traditional literature review that we all are familiar with. We have a database selection, which means we will select the search engine from where the data is retrieved. So in this case, the example that I'm showing you, the database was all retrieved from only Web of Science. Now, people generally argue in research, Scopus has more database. Some people say Web of Science have more database. So it completely depends on the author. Whatever database he wants to choose, you can use multiple databases also at the same time for bibliometric analysis. The time period chosen for research was 1996 to 2020. You need to have a sound justification for choosing any time period that you choose. Now the search design, which means what are your main keywords? What is your area of research? So if somebody is doing a research on maybe medical, so he may talk about antibacterial dental adhesives. So 248 publications in this case were retrieved. Now, whatever data that you collect was analyzed, could be analyzed either using MS Excel. You make Excel sheets, you have WASP Viewer, you have Biblioshini, RStudio, SiteSpace, BibExcel, different softwares as per your research. What kind of analysis does a bibliometric paper present? Number one, it will talk about authorship patterns. What are the different authors, top 10, top 15 authors, top 20, top 10 most cited publication, highest citations, the keywords that you use to search those papers. Now, these keywords are very important because the right keyword will help you in identification of right papers, and whatever keywords you identify have to be mentioned in the main body of the research paper. You will also talk about the all influential journals. Along with influential journals, the bibliometric analysis papers also give you an overview of the name of the journal, the H index, the citations, the I index of the author, and many other such kind of information. It can be a description of the growth, trend, citation, productive countries, productive organizations. Even nowadays, bibliometric analysis papers also give a complete analysis of the universities from where those authors are, and those universities which are doing major work in that domain. So it talks about authorship pattern as well as collaboration, which I will show you gradually. So these are some of the graphs that bibliometric analysis generates using these kind of software. So first, beginning with the methodology for a bibliometric analysis paper, the study design, which is the preliminary literature review. You talk about the determination of the research gap as well as the aim, objective, and scope. This is, the various sections of a bibliometric analysis paper. So when you begin with data collection, data retrieval, you enter your keywords, you start searching for papers. You may mention, I need Web of Science, I need Scopus. So N represents the number of papers that you finally searched on that topic after putting all the keywords. So in this case, it was something like 462 when I searched for Web of Science and 363 from Scopus. So total this time range up to 2021. Language, initially there was no barrier to language, but as we move further, because you cannot work with something like 800 or 1000 papers, so you need to zero down it aligned with your research questions. I'm again and again saying along with your research focus, what you want to evaluate and assess. So we add inclusion and exclusion criteria. There are duplicacy checks because there are sometimes similar papers by same author. Then there are only abstracts, and there are only conference proceedings, which will again give you simple abstracts. So you can exclude all those from your literature bank. Moving on to data analysis. You finally create an Excel file or a file format ready for editing. You have keyword standardizations, you have author name standardizations. After that, it is your choice, whatever software you can use. You can use WASP Viewer, Bibliometrics is also used, Arshini is used. So with that, that software will help us in bibliometric analysis, which is science mapping, scientific mapping, publication source analysis. It will be an analysis of the various keywords which will give you the coming research themes, country, institution analysis, what institutions are working on it, how many countries are publishing papers on it. So basically, it will give you a detail on your keywords, your search terms, your techniques, how you combined it, determination of research area. Now, what is the ultimate outcome of a bibliometric analysis paper? So the ultimate outcome is determination of research areas, future research areas. When you start assessing, evaluating different journals that are publishing papers, picking up the top cited papers, you pick up the keywords, the research themes, it automatically generates a few areas in which in future research can be done. So again, showing you an example from one of my published papers. This was a bibliometric analysis paper. This was the preliminary chart we added at the left side, where we began with identification, where the databases were 100. Duplicate records were removed. The records were screened with 97, and some 4 or 5 were removed, and then retrieval and moving out of scope. Then you start evaluating, and finally we reached with a sample of 63. And the image on the right side shows you the various stages for a bibliometric. Stage 1, identification, where we thought which of the database we are going to use. Stage 2 was again picking up the right keywords. The example I'm showing you, this is a bibliometric analysis paper on the career transition for women. So the first word for the keyword was career transition. Then we picked up women. Then we searched for, you can even add space career transition plus women, women career transition. So you have to use and try all these permutations while searching for papers, and then they are all recorded as part of your keywords. Organizing the codes, total number of articles, reporting them, and then whatever data you obtain in the form of Excel sheets, you generate graphs out of it, narrative, or any kind of graphical images that you can use. So I'll show you some of the representations, like number of publications by year. Year-wise, when I chose a time period from 1986 to 2021, it will give me yearly number of publications that have been published so far. So you can easily project that after 207 or 8, the trend started rising, and this became a research area which is well known and used by people. Now, the example I'm showing you, this is a very interesting example. If you carefully look at the second chart where I'm showing the number of publications by sources, this particular author, Dobrukali, that I've mentioned, is a very good paper on bibliometric analysis. What they did, they analyzed the journals where maximum number of papers were published in this domain of construction safety. So you can see different color of lines for different journal of construction, engineering, automation, safety science. Now, when they realized that engineering, construction, and architecture management has published least papers in this domain, so they pitched their paper to ECAM, which is this journal, Engineering Construction. And this was finally accepted, because when you give a journal a niche area that this is a paper you haven't published for past so many years, or for past 20 years, you've only published 8 papers in this domain in comparison to one of the top journals which is publishing 61 papers. So this kind of analysis can only be obtained from a bibliometric analysis paper, which is otherwise not possible manually. These are some of the keyword co-occurrence maps. For example, if I'm working on a paper on health and safety, right? So analyzing different papers, when I use that software, it gives me a cluster of keywords: health and safety, accident prevention, construction, safety management, safety technology. See, there are little differences, very small, minor differences between each of these terms. So it will also generate this kind of a graph. This is called a graphical representation of the co-occurrence map, that these particular keywords have been used together. These lines represent which of the keywords have been used together. Then is co-citation network of articles, which means the article published by, for example, Asgen 91 and Fornelli. These have been co-cited. If you look at the line 2, so these have been cited twice together. So all these kind of analysis is an outcome of bibliometric analysis software. Bibliometric analysis also helps you in generating clusters. Clustering is from the different papers published. You formulate clusters based on research themes. It can also be based on citations. It can be based on any other criteria. So the particular example that I am showing you from a systematic literature review that has been published in one of the top journals. If you carefully look at this, it says cluster 1 is consumer perception, attitude, behavior. These number of authors have published this, and look at the bracket, it will say Asgen published 48, Hare published 44 papers over this with 489 citations. Then is cluster 3. Now this cluster is based on number of citations as well as the themes. One is sustainable luxury, one is the business model, one is the waste treatment. So different kinds of clusters can be obtained in bibliometric analysis. Now, this data can be used both ways. If you look at the cluster with lowest citation, which is globalization. Now, it depends on the researcher, what he intends to work on. A person after reading a bibliometric analysis comes to know of the probable research domains where he can work in future. You can pick up a domain which has not been referred much. For example, only 81 citation, then this area needs more work. Or you can pick up the area with 609 citations, that it has the maximum number of citations, but yet this part of the research has been unexplored. Now, why do you need to do this? What is the significance of this kind of analysis? If you look it from the peer review process, because ultimately we're all faculty members, we're all researchers, we want to do good research. And whenever we want to send our paper for review and publication, this is a screenshot from my own portal. I'm not authentically allowed to show this, so I'm giving you just a brief view that I received a paper for review. The first aspect as a reviewer, what I'm supposed to fill is the originality of the paper. I have to mention very clearly that the paper I am reviewing, how significant it is, what kind of information is it have, and does that justify publication. So beginning my session today, I said what is the need for doing a literature review is searching for novel, which is originality. The second was the research gap. So novelty and research gap can be retrieved very clearly only from a good literature review. So it is up to you. You want to use a systematic literature review, a bibliometric analysis, or the traditional one, which is the manual system. If you look at the second section, it is again on the literature review, where it is clearly asking the reviewer to give, does the paper demonstrate an adequate understanding of the literature review? So again, an understanding of the literature review and identification of research gap manually, which may not be possible, but while doing a bibliometric analysis, when you generate those graphs that I have shown for the keyword occurrence and for other, it is very easily to establish the research gap, that this aspect of research has been done, and this can take you further. These are the references for today's lecture. For today's lecture, I tried to cover all those keywords, all those terms which are associated with bibliometric analysis in the time span that I was given. Dr. Deepashri, if I have 2 minutes, I have a small video to show them about the software, because it was not possible to integrate both in today's lecture.
Yes, ma'am. Go on, ma'am, please.
So this is a video by one of my scholars, and I'm sure it will help you know a number of things about bibliometric analysis.
Hello everyone, this is Jan from Chitkara University, doing my Ph.D. under the guidance of Dr. Harveen Bhandari. There is one thing that every researcher, every Ph.D. scholar or a master's student is struggling with, is identifying the research gap. So when you're trying to identify the research gap in your research field, so you will go through the lots of research paper available on internet and you explore various journals and other websites. But again, you lost in the ocean of the thousand of research paper, and again not able to identify what is the exactly gap you are going to address in your research. So when I was passing through this phase of identifying the gap in my research field and struggling through the bunch of the research paper I have downloaded from the internet and Google Scholar and other platforms, so my guides just suggested me, why did you try the systematic literature review? So doing a systematic literature review is very easy with the help of software. At the same time, it will be tricky to decode the images or graphs or figures generated from that software. So for that, you need to understand what is these figures are saying, what is these figures are indicating, how the things are connected, and then you make the interpretations of these figures. The most commonly used software for the systematic literature review is Viewer, of course, and the RStudio. Both are free software and available on the internet. You can download it from directly. You don't need any crack version for that. So before using the software RStudio or Viewer, you need Excel file or a CSV file generated from the data source like Scopus or Web of Science. After downloading these files from the data source, you need to feed these files to your SLR software, and after few adjustments according to a research question, you will be able to generate very interesting figures, graphs, and tables in a matter of few clicks, because these software have very user-friendly interface. So apart from exploring the research gap of your research area, you will also able to identify the year-wise trend of your research. Who is the best author in your field, best journal of your field, what are the most trendy themes, and what are the areas that are less explored. So there are a lot many things you can explore with these softwares, and there are various tutorials available on the internet and YouTube. You can explore them. So this is from my side. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much. That was about the various kinds of software that you can use and the process, how do you develop, as well as the significance and the outcome of bibliometric analysis. So over to you, Dr. Deepashri.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for this wealth of information. I'm very sure that this will be of great help to the participants, because where people struggle is this is the most important part of any research, and we think literature review is just 2 words, but it is not, isn't it? Dr. Harveen knows it. So thank you, ma'am, for sharing these gems. I now
I
hand over
hope
to
it is
Twara Sharma.
beneficial to them, because it's a very vast topic. So I thought I've just picked up some important keywords, and I thought just to give them a gist in quick 30 minutes about software, because you really wanted me to tell them about software as well as the process of doing and the significance of doing a bibliometric analysis. But for all the listeners today, you have very easy YouTube videos available on doing a bibliometric analysis, and it's very easy to learn. And that is the reason I especially asked my scholar to make this video, because he also learned it through YouTube, and now he's working on his manuscript where he's developing this bibliometric analysis. So it's very easy and it's very useful, especially for PhD scholars.
Yes, once they get over the fear of accessing it. So I think it has been extremely useful, and in a short time, in a crisp manner, you have communicated. Thank you. And I now hand over to Architect Twara for taking it further.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Harveen ma'am, for your insightful keynote address. Like Deepashri ma'am said, that you've been able to give us a lot of information in such a strategic nutshell, and I'm sure it's helpful to all of us. And your talk has certainly set a high standard, and it'll hopefully enrich all our discussions and further our understandings throughout the remainder of our conference. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us here today.